Hey neighbors, Brent here with your Dashboard Devotional. This past Sunday I was visiting with one of the guys in our church who came to me and he said, Brent, it's finally happened to me and to my family. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, it looks like sports are going to get in the way of us being at church on Sunday. And I said, oh, really? And there was just a little bit of guilt and a little bit of sadness even in the voice. This conflict of wanting to be there for our kids and to celebrate the things that they're good at, but also feeling beholden that maybe somehow missing church is something we should avoid. And I wanted to say to him, and I want to say to you, I encourage you to be at church every single Sunday. At 9 or 11 there at Stewart, we have wonderful times of worship. The Spirit of God is thick in that room, and it's a wonderful time to be in the midst of your community and in the fellowship of God, finding joy in His presence. But there will come times, from time to time, when your kids have an activity sponsored by an organization that doesn't put worship as a most important thing in their collective lives. And there may be a Sunday where you have to miss from time to time. It may be that there's a Sunday where you need to have your kids show up to worship in their baseball jersey or their basketball jersey or their scout uniform. Whatever it is, they can come just the way they are, and then you can sneak away to your game. I know for sure of a family at least who last Sunday went to a game and then got back in time for worship. So I want to encourage you to find a way to make it all work. Now, I think some of the guilt that I was hearing in this dad's voice comes from this Old Testament understanding of Sabbath. I think, in part. And the Old Testament reading comes from Exodus, and it's right there in the Bible, in the 31st chapter of Exodus, where Moses is up on the mountain with God, and this is what God says about the Sabbath. The Lord said to Moses, "Say to the Israelites, you must observe my Sabbaths. This will be a sign between me and you for the generations to come, so you may know that I am the Lord who makes you holy. Observe the Sabbath because it is holy to you. Anyone who desecrates it must be put to death. Whoever does any work on that day must be cut off from his people." And then the text goes on. And I agree with that teaching that the Sabbath was a commandment. But Jesus, who is for us the new Moses, comes to re-articulate for us on God's behalf as God Himself. When in the Gospels, in the Gospel of Mark, 2nd chapter, when questioned about the Sabbath, we have this interaction. On one Sabbath, Jesus was going through the grain fields, and His disciples walked along, and they began to pick some heads of grain. The Pharisees there said to Him, "Look, why are they doing what's unlawful on the Sabbath?" He answered, "Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need? In the days of Abiathar the high priest, he entered the house of God and ate the consecrated bread, which is lawful only for priests to eat. And he also gave some to his companions." Then Jesus said to those Pharisees, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath." Now, He was making a declarative statement about who He was as the Son of God. But He also seemed to say here that the Sabbath was made for us, that the Sabbath was actually a gift. The commandment to rest one day out of 7 was a gift that God was giving us, not something that God intended to punish us when we weren't observing it. At least that's the way I look at this. I think that what Jesus is trying to tell us here in Mark is, look, I know that if you go at this life 7 days a week, 24/7, constantly doing and chasing and running around, trying to keep busy and perform and achieve and accumulate, that at some point you're going to get worn flat out. And so He gives us this gift of the Sabbath, this invitation, this permission to rest, to say no to good things, to say yes to being in His presence. And so whether it's a Sunday morning at 9 or 11 for our worship, or whether it's right now as you watch this video, just stop. Take a moment to rest. Pull out your scriptures and read a word. Get an encouraging word from God. Look ahead to the weekend and see if you can't find a way to schedule your Sunday so that you can attend one of those 2 services in and around the games that you've already been scheduled to participate in as well. There's a way for us to live this life and to live it with God integrated into every aspect of it. I do want to strongly encourage you to be at worship with us on Sunday. And at the same time, I want to encourage you to give yourself a little grace. That if on rare occasion you've got something scheduled, you've got a vacation, you've got something that keeps you from being at our worship service at our times that we've chosen, you can still very much find yourself in the presence of the loving and compassionate God. Remember, The love of God is a foolish love. It goes beyond all boundaries of what human love may have said to us. Let God love you today. In the meantime, have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. God bless you. Bye-bye.